One rainy day in Taiwan, a young intern journalist named David ends up stranded on the side of a mountain road when his car starts breaking down. While waiting there, he sees another car pass by, and moments later, a loud crash echoes through the night. Curious, he grabs his camera and goes to check what happened. But for some reason, he suddenly turns back, almost like fear is stopping him from getting any closer. 9 years later, David is now living in Taipei. He has a different car now, still secondhand, and he is casually driving through the city at night, enjoying the view, when he suddenly gets caught in traffic on an overpass. It turns out a sports car has crashed, and being a journalist, David quickly starts recording the scene for a story. Then he realizes the man inside the car is actually a politician, and he was with a much younger woman who works as an adult magazine model. Sensing a huge scandal, David wastes no time snapping photos of the politician before the police and ambulance arrive. After that, he calls Maggie, a co-worker from the newsroom, and the woman he has feelings for. But while he is distracted, David gets hit, and the bumper of his beloved car ends up damaged. The next day, he takes it to AG's repair shop. That is when AG tells him something unexpected. David's car had actually been in a serious accident before, and many of its parts are not original. In other words, he had been fooled by the used car dealer who sold it to him. Not long after, David heads to the police station to meet his friend, Sergeant Wang. While he is there, he notices a new officer named Mason, a man with unsettling dark eyes. David asks Sergeant Wang to run a check on his license plate because he wants to know if his used car really was involved in a major accident. After David leaves, Sergeant Wang passes the task on to Mason. That night, the newsroom staff gathers at a party hosted by Mr. Ming, the chief editor, who has just been promoted again. Everyone praises David for being fast and sharp at work. At one point, someone jokes that Maggie should just date David since the two of them work so well together and seem like a perfect match. David clearly likes the sound of that, but Maggie does not respond at all. Meanwhile, an editor named Mr. Cheng looks noticeably bothered by the conversation. Later, David gives Maggie a ride home. Along the way, he notices that she is upset after fighting with her boyfriend over messages. Seeing an opening, David tries to get closer to her emotionally and encourages her to leave the guy. Unexpectedly, Maggie kisses him, and before long, David ends up spending the night at her place. The next morning, everything takes a turn. The politician from the car crash appears in a public statement claiming that the adult magazine model was actually his wife. He even shows a marriage certificate, though no one can tell whether it is real or fake. Furious, he threatens to sue the newspaper and the journalist for damaging his reputation. Faced with that pressure, Mr. Ming and Mr. Chung tell David to publish a public apology in the paper before the situation spirals even further. Meanwhile, Mason finishes checking the plate history and hands the results to Sergeant Wang. Soon after, David arrives at the station and immediately notices Mason's arrogant attitude since he does not even bother greeting him. As David looks through the old crash photos, he suddenly realizes something chilling. This is the exact same accident he witnessed on that rainy night long ago. He is no longer just a witness, he is part of the mystery. The story then shifts back to the past. David remembers that night clearly. He tried calling an ambulance, but there was no signal. When he finally reached the wreckage, he found two victims, a man and a woman, both lying still. Back in the present, David returns to the newsroom and sees that everyone has just finished a meeting. He pulls Maggie aside for a quick smoke break, which once again draws an unhappy look from Mr. Chung. During that moment, Maggie shares the outcome of the meeting. The company is planning layoffs, and David's name is on the list. It was Mr. Cheng who recommended him, and management has already approved it. Hearing that, David loses his temper. Just like that, he is out of a job. He tries talking to Mr. Ming, but there is nothing he can do. The decision has already been finalized, and all he can suggest is for David to take it easy and start looking for something else. That night, now officially unemployed, David heads to AG's workshop. Ajay greets him with a bag full of beer, encouraging him to drink and forget everything. While they sit there, David notices photos of Ajay's wife and child, making it clear he is a devoted family man. As they drink, David opens up about his car, about how it was involved in that hit and run 9 years ago, the same incident he witnessed himself. And somehow, the very car from that accident has now ended up in his hands. After getting drunk, David takes a taxi home. But from a distance, someone inside another car is quietly watching him. Once he gets home, with nothing else to do, David picks up his old camera and starts going through the photos he took on that night. Something feels off. The file names are out of order, which suggests that some of the photos were deliberately deleted. Curious, he begins digging through old newspaper archives to find more information about the case. That is when he discovers something surprising. The female victim from the accident actually survived, but for some unknown reason, she ran away from the hospital soon after. Maggie questions why he is so focused on an old case, but David explains that he was there that night. He was the witness. What bothers him is that some of the photos he submitted back then seem to have disappeared. At the time, he had handed his camera to Mr. Chung. Maggie tells him to stop thinking about it, since the case is already in the past. But David starts to realize something. Mr. Cheng may have never liked him from the beginning. On top of that, hospital records reveal that the surviving victim's name is Ai Ting. Without wasting time, David and Maggie head out to find her address. And once again, David has the feeling that someone is following him. When they arrive, they are greeted by Ai Ting's grandparents. They say she no longer lives there, and they have no idea where she went. As they talk, they mention that Ai Ting occasionally sends them expensive tea. While looking through old photos, it becomes clear she has been living a very different life. David recognizes the tea as something rare, only sold in a few select places, so he tracks down a shop that carries it. All the while, the mysterious figure continues to follow him from a distance. At the tea shop, they ask if anyone has seen Ai Ting. The staff recognizes her immediately, but not by that name. They know her as Miss Chang, which means for all these years, Ai Ting has been hiding under a completely new identity. Not long after, Ai Ting suddenly shows up at the tea shop again. The owner tells her that someone has been looking for her, and that person is David. When they finally meet, David explains that he was the witness to the hit and run that night. Hearing that, Ai Ting is immediately pulled back into the past. She remembers driving late at night with John before their car was suddenly struck at an intersection. David presses further, wondering why she ran away from the hospital back then. But instead of answering, Ai Ting becomes upset. She refuses to revisit the past and asks him to let it go before leaving abruptly. With no answers, David and Maggie head home. Meanwhile, the mysterious person continues to watch Ai Ting from a distance. Back at home, David reviews John's death report and discovers something strange. John was not drunk at the time of the accident. That means Ai Ting lied about that detail, but David cannot figure out why. The more he thinks about it, the more it feels like Ai Ting has been running from someone all this time. She changed her name, disappeared from the hospital, and avoided her past completely. Concerned, David calls her to check on her and to ask why she lied. Ai Ting says very little, and without her knowing, someone is already watching her from outside. Later that night, Ai Ting tries to end the conversation and asks David to stop digging into her life, insisting that she has finally found peace. Sensing that something is wrong, David retraces her steps from the night before and finds the boarding house where she lives. He asks around until he locates her room at the very end of the hallway. The door is already broken open, and she is gone. As he searches the place, he suddenly hears a noise coming from the bathroom. A man is inside. David chases after him, but the man manages to escape. She struggles, manages to free herself using a piece of wire, but the door remains locked. The call cuts off, and her phone is no longer reachable. Maggie urges David to stop, warning him that this is getting too dangerous. But David refuses to back down. Going back to the old photos, David notices that the license plate is too blurry to read clearly. However, one detail stands out. The car was a black Mercedes. Using that clue, he begins guessing possible plate number combinations and sends them to Sergeant Wang for verification. But Wang is not available, so David turns to Mason instead. At first, Mason refuses to help, but David keeps pushing until he finally agrees. After checking multiple possibilities, they print out the results. And among those combinations, one plate number stands out. It belongs to a black Mercedes owned by Mr. Ming, David's former boss. This revelation triggers a memory. Back then, Mr. Ming had claimed the license plate in the photos was unclear, while still praising David's bravery as an intern. Meanwhile, Mr. Cheng had criticized him, telling him to learn how to use a camera properly. Not long after, David receives a sudden call from AG, asking him to come over because he wants to explain what really happened 9 years ago. As David heads to the workshop, but when he arrives, something feels off. There is no response when he calls out. Inside, he finds Mr. Ming already there, also invited by Ajay. Both of them are left stunned. The police soon arrive, and David brings up the black Mercedes connected to the case. He begins to question whether Mr. Ming was actually the one responsible for the accident all those years ago. Faced with the situation, Mr. Ming finally admits part of the truth. That night, Ajay had borrowed his car to go out with a woman. At first, Mr. Ming did not realize it, but eventually he noticed something was wrong and forced Ajay to confess. Mr. Ming also reveals that Ajay had been following both David and Ai Ting recently, all the way to her boarding house. After thinking about it all night, Ajay decided he could no longer carry the guilt. He planned to apologize to Ai Ting and offer compensation. He even saw David there searching for her, which made him panic and flee through the bathroom window. Later, Ajay called Mr. Ming, asking him to meet for drinks. He said he could not keep living with the guilt anymore. But by the time Mr. Ming arrived, it was already too late. Not long after, his wife shows up crying over him, and that moment makes David question everything. It is hard to believe that someone who seemed so devoted to his family could have been living a double life. Soon after, Sergeant Wang contacts David with an update. He has managed to track the last known location of Ai Ting's phone and sends officers to assist him. They arrive at a massive apartment complex and split up to search. David goes door to door, showing Ai Ting's photo to residents, but no one recognizes her. Eventually, he knocks on one door and is surprised to find Mason living there. David explains that he is looking for the woman in the photo, but Mason claims he has never seen her before. Then suddenly, a noise echoes from inside. Without hesitation, David pushes his way in, only to find that it was just two cats knocking something over. Mason calmly tells him to check every room if he wants, but there is nothing suspicious to be found. With no evidence and nothing to go on, David has no choice but to apologize and leave. Elsewhere, the truth is far darker. It turns out that just like Ajay, Mason had also been following David, using him as a way to track Ai Ting down, a woman he had been searching for all this time. The place David entered earlier is not even Mason's real home. He is only looking after the neighbors' cats while they are away. From there, Mason quietly moves through a hidden path that connects to his actual house. He also feeds her, takes care of her, even cleans her wounds. It feels like there was something between them in the past, but now it has twisted into something disturbing and cruel. As time passes, the abuse continues. Mason keeps demanding that Ai Ting return his money, but she insists she has no idea what he is talking about. Meanwhile, David returns to Ajay's workshop, still troubled. As he looks around, he notices the family photos Ajay always kept on display. That detail sticks with him. Someone like Ajay does not seem like the type to betray his family. Slowly, a new suspicion forms in his mind. Maybe the one who had the affair was not Ajay, but Mr. Ming. Determined to find out the truth, David follows Mr. Ming after work. To his shock, Mr. Ming heads straight to Maggie's place. That is when everything becomes clear. Maggie has been having an affair with him all along. Watching them together leaves David heartbroken, realizing the woman he cared about is not who he thought she was. After Mr. Ming leaves, David steps out, his expression cold as he looks toward Maggie. Then he slips into Mr. Ming's car and confronts him. David presents a photo taken on the night of the accident. In that photo, Ajay is seen celebrating his child's birthday with his family, proving he could not have been out with another woman that night. This forces Mr. Ming to drop the lie and finally tell the full story. That night, after everyone had been drinking, Maggie approached Mr. Ming, who was already involved with her, asking for a promotion. At the same time, David had already left earlier, after being reminded by Mr. Cheng to be careful on the road. His car broke down on the mountain, and with no signal, he was left stranded as the rain began to fall. Meanwhile, Mr. Ming and Maggie were out together in his Mercedes. Maggie was willing to do anything to climb higher, and Mr. Ming gave in to temptation. As they drove, they passed David on the road. Distracted and careless, Mr. Ming lost focus and crashed into another car at an intersection. In that moment, he considered calling for help, but Maggie stopped him. They were both drunk, and calling the police would only ruin them. So instead, they chose to leave the scene and disappear into the night. After fleeing the scene, Mr. Ming rushed to AG's workshop, pounding on the door while AG was still working late. Mr. Ming immediately asked for help, begging to swap cars and license plates for a while since Ajay owned the same model Mercedes. He needed to go to work the next day without raising suspicion. At first, Ajay refused. He knew Mr. Ming should take responsibility instead of running away, but Mr. Ming kept pressuring him, and in that moment, Ajay saw something that made everything worse. Maggie was pregnant, and she had just suffered a miscarriage. He could not live with the fact that he had helped cover up such a terrible crime. Back in the present, David threatens to report everything to the police, but Mr. Ming remains calm. He knows David has no solid proof. And David asks if either of them knows Ai-ting. Mr. Ming denies everything, claiming they have no connection to her at all. That only confuses David even more. If they are not involved, then who kidnapped Ai-ting? With no clear answers, David shifts his focus back to Mason. From morning until night, he keeps an eye on him. Eventually, he notices something suspicious. Mason is buying large containers of chemicals, which immediately raises red flags. David follows him quietly all the way home. That is enough for David. He rushes in, banging on the door, and a fight breaks out between them. But Mason is much stronger. Instead of panicking, he suddenly hands over a key and calmly allows David to search the place. At the same time, Mason begins to question David's intentions. He finds it strange how deeply David is involved in Ai-ting's case. He even starts to suspect that David might have taken something from him, something important. Then Mason reveals the truth. He, John, and Ai-ting were once partners in crime. They were robbers, living recklessly and crossing every line. Ai-ting was involved with both men. But when they returned, everything had changed. He claimed it was because she would not stop crying. Horrified, John and Ai-ting decided to cut ties with him and leave him behind for good. That betrayal stayed with Mason. Not long after the car accident happened, Mason eventually tracked them down on foot. After hearing all of this, David finally opens the locked door. What he finds inside leaves him completely shaken. Ai-ting is still alive, but her condition is far worse than he ever imagined. The story then moves forward, and the weight of everything is clearly written across David's face. Not long after, he calls Mr. Ming to meet him. Now, David uses it as leverage. With no way out, Mr. Ming has no choice but to give in. In his eyes, the young man he once looked down on has now turned into something far more dangerous. After Mr. Ming leaves, David breaks down in tears. Then, in a quiet but telling moment, he burns a check worth 2 million Taiwan dollars, money he once intended to return to Ai-ting. Years pass, and David eventually returns to the same industry he once struggled in. This time, everything is different. His career rises rapidly, and on this day, he is about to be appointed as the new director of public relations. The man who was once kind and compassionate is now completely changed. He carries himself with confidence, control, and a cold sense of authority. At the office, he is surprised to see Maggie there, covering the appointment of the new director, without realizing that the person she is there for is him. As they catch up, Maggie casually mentions that she has been given a job by Mr. Ming and now works at a TV station. David listens with a faint smile, already knowing the truth behind everything. It turns out that back then, it was never Mr. Cheng who put David's name on the layoff list. It was Maggie. The two of them used to work in the same department, and she saw him as competition. To secure her own position, she made sure he was removed. At the same time, she had been pressuring Mr. Ming, using their secret relationship as leverage to protect herself. From that moment on, David understands exactly who Maggie is. Just another wolf hiding behind a familiar face. Now, standing in front of everyone as the newly appointed director, David delivers a short speech. But instead of focusing on his new role, he shifts into telling a story. He speaks about a young man who loves ghost stories. One day, the man goes to a bookstore, searching for the scariest story he can find. And just like that, the story pulls us back into the past. On that rainy night, inside the wrecked car, David had seen something no one else noticed. A bag filled with 2 million Taiwan dollars. That single decision changed everything. It meant that when Mason later found the empty bag, he believed Ai-ting had taken the money. And that is why he spent years hunting her down. The scene returns to David as he continues his story. The young man, eager to find the scariest ghost tale, is handed a dark-covered book by the shop owner. There is only one warning. He must never read the last page, because that is where the most terrifying part lies. And just like that, the story pulls us back once again. The truth behind that final page is far worse than any ghost story. Seeing her like that, David breaks down completely. Then Mason appears and forces him into an impossible situation. Overwhelmed with guilt and shock, David apologizes again and again. Unable to process what he is seeing, Mason forces him to take a tool and finish it. By the time it is over, Ting is already gone as well. From that point on, David is no longer the same person. Erasing everything that happened. The story then shifts back to the present. Despite the warning, the young man in the story cannot resist his curiosity. He pays a large sum of money for the book and rushes home, excited to uncover its secrets. The shop owner watches him leave with a quiet smile, knowing the book was sold for far more than its real value. To everyone else, it is just a foolish mistake driven by ambition. But for David, the meaning runs much deeper. As he finishes the story, his gaze settles on Maggie. There is no warmth left in his eyes. In that moment, it becomes clear. Whatever he once was is gone. Now he has become something far more dangerous, a wolf even more ruthless than the ones he once feared. So the moral of the story is, if your car breaks down, just stay in the car and mind your business, because curiosity, money, and toxic coworkers will turn you into a full-time villain.